Hi, and welcome to Book Impressions. In this episode, I will be featuring the book The Perfect Neighbor by author Susanna Beard. So, let's look at our title. It says The Perfect Neighbor, an absolutely unputdownable psychological thriller. Totally gripping psychological thriller. And I have to warn you, though, there are 6 books in this series. I have not read this book because I'm not a big series reader, but if you are, you might want to check this book out. It's an interesting cover, I have to admit, because it just has a red door. I guess it symbolizes the neighbor. And we all think our neighbors are perfect, right? Yeah, right. Anyway, let's look at how many pages are in this book. There are 260 pages in book 1. It's in English. It was published on September 30th of 2021. Currently, it's on Kindle for $3.99. There is a paperback for $9.99. And let's read our blurb. So the gripping new psychological thriller from a bestseller. So this author's a bestseller. Beth wants to love her new home on a quiet suburban street. She wishes she could make friends with her beautiful neighbor, Oksana. She longs for a new group of friends, welcoming neighbors to visit, coffee dates and dinner parties. The life here feels so closed. Then Beth runs into Oksana's garden one day to fetch her runaway dog. And she sees something shocking that makes her wonder who her new neighbor really are. A girl in the window, a pale, desperate face, a hastily scribbled sign bearing only 2 words, "Help me." Who is the girl? What are the neighbors hiding? Sometimes it's the most perfect neighbor that hides the most terrible secret. Fans of Gillian Flynn, Tim Logan, B.A. Paris, Leanne Moratti, Claire Dyer, Sam Carrington, Celeste Mead will devour this stunning psychological thriller. Already sounds interesting. Think about that. You got a new neighbor, or you moved into a neighborhood and you see this. What would you do? This is kind of an interesting story. I'm curious to see what she does. So, moving along here, let's look at how many reviews this book's got. And it's got a lot of reviews. It's got 3,848 ratings as of July of 2022. It's got an overall review rating of 4.2 out of 5 stars. 5 stars has 53%. 4 stars has 27%, and I always say you could put those 2 numbers together, because sometimes when you read those 4 stars, they sound like they could be 5 stars. So by doing that, we'd have 80%, which is telling us people like this book. 3 stars is 13%, 2 stars 4%, and 1 star 2%. So let's look at some of our headlines under the 5 stars. Okay, this is pretty intense. Page turner. Really good book. Addicting. Couldn't stop reading. Suspenseful. Wow. Good read. Great book. Enthralling. Good read. Well, I'd say that. They're definitely 5-star readers. Let's look at our 4 stars. Okay, it's overall enjoyable. Okay. I find that fascinating when someone says okay under 4 stars. That's usually in like a 3-star. Thought-provoking. Good. Harrowing. A slow but good story. So we might have some pacing here. Engrossing suspense. This book is most compelling. See, that's like it could be a 5-star. Interesting read. Good read. Let's look at our 3 stars. 3 stars are people who usually find something they like, but there's something there that they don't like. And like I always say, it's an opinion. It says, interesting plot, poorly written. So, although it was an interesting plot, they think the author kind of poorly wrote it. Easy to turn the pages. Good. Different. This book is different from what I thought. If you get a chance, you should read it and see what you think. Okay. Disappointing and not a thriller. Well, that's somebody's opinion, because what some people think is a thriller, somebody else thinks otherwise. Okay. A good read. Page turner. Not bad. Had potential, but the ending seemed incredibly rushed. Everything seemed to build nicely, but it almost seemed the author either became bored of it or had to meet a deadline. Easy to read and initially gets into, but seemed to fall flat in the last quarter. Of course, sometimes that happens when you're doing a series and the author just wants to get to the next book. That sometimes can happen. But it's that pacing again. If you've seen any of my other book videos, I always talk about pacing. Pacing is everything to a book. Let's look at 2 stars. 2 stars are usually sometimes they don't like it, but they can find something to like about it. But most of the time they don't like it. It says, methodological plot like reading a newspaper article. An average read. Not exactly a thriller. Very disappointed. Not really a thriller. It said this dragged on a bit, so we can already see pacing. Pacing was a problem for these 2.2 stars. But I guess if you don't realize that it's a series, and some people don't always see that because they're not saying book 1 here. You just have to look closely to know it's a series. Anyway, 1 star is 2%, and like I always say about 1 stars, they're people that don't read this genre. They just decided to give it a try. And you can always tell. There's no plot, no story, not for me. Incredibly disappointing novel, totally predictable and boring characters. How did this get a publishing deal? Well, this is Alexa. I'm sorry to tell you. Somebody's opinion. Let's look at Susanna Beard and find out something about this author by going to her autobiography, and let's see how many other books she's a bestseller. We did find that out. There's her book right there. I wonder if she writes a lot of thriller type books, because if she wrote 6 books here in this series, and so obviously the story goes on and on. So if you're a person that doesn't like a book going on and on, like this person said, they thought there was a pacing issue in the first book, this person may not want to read the series. And I thought, well, let's just get on with it. And here's all her books. And it looks like she writes a lot of books. And it doesn't look like she set up her author page because it's not highlighted. I find this interesting. I see her here, but it's not highlighted, which I find really interesting. So obviously she didn't set up an author page. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll put The Perfect Neighbor down in the description if you want to come over and check this book out. Look for the URL below in the description. And if you like content like this and would like to receive more content like this, I hope you will consider subscribing to this channel. And until next time, this is Book Impressions, signing off.